I think that is everybody that is going to make it for tonight. So let's get cracking without further ado. Welcome everyone to tonight's Remnant tasting. I think it's been a bit of a while since we had a virtual tasting with Remnant, and obviously Brendan's super excited. I'm super excited. And you know, we're getting to try the Drop Bear #2 release alongside a couple of archival releases, I suppose you could say, which are super exciting. We pulled out some pandemic era bottles for this one. And of course, we're joined by a super special guest, Phil Collidge from Remnants. So he works closely with Peter Bignell to craft these releases. He's got his fingers in all the whiskey pies down there in Hobart. And he's calling in from, was it far north Queensland you are?
Yeah, I'm on the Whitsunday coast.
Oh, that sounds awful. Sounds like it's much warmer up there than it is down here.
Chilly 26 up here.
Oh,
I got my jacket on.
that's terrifying. That, you know, cold at 26 seems so luxurious. But yeah, before we delve into the whiskies and before I hand it over, we have the all important housekeeping. We recommend having 6 glasses so you can go back and compare each dram if you have the glassware for it, particularly with the virus and vaccine. That'll be really cool to compare the two. As usual, please don't drive after the tasting. We highly encourage responsible drinking. I think it's not super crazy until we get to the Drop Bear at the end, which is just a cool 64.7% ABV. But yes, please be very conscious. Please don't drive. All of our tastings are recorded as well for those who want to watch them back or who can't join us tonight. And I believe we've got a general overview of the story of Nant up on our website in the featured brands section. And please pop your tasting notes and questions in the chat. We love to see the tasting notes, and we'll try and squeeze as much information out of Phil as possible that we can legally talk about anyway. But yeah, I think that's all from me. Let's dive into whiskey #1, the Scoundrel, and Phil will tell us a little bit about the birth of the brand and about Remnant.
Oh, thanks, Em. Yeah, well, the Scoundrel was obviously our first release, and in a sense, it's a very happy accident because at that stage, we just entered into the idea of making offers to the barrel holders from Nant, basically who'd been corralled by Australian Whisky Holdings, who are obviously now LARC, and many of the barrel holders hadn't had an offer from them to buy their whiskey, probably about 80% of the barrels. And there was no competition, obviously, for that spirit. And Pete Bignell approached us through Dane, his son, myself and another 2 guys, to see if we'd be interested in putting a consortium together to cash up an offer to these barrel holders that would be a little bit more attractive. So the trick with the original offers were that they had a time frame on them that was very crashing for the barrel owners. If you owned a barrel of whiskey, there wasn't, you were given very restricted time to do anything with it, which we ameliorated by saying we would move it to our bond store without a time limit so that we could assess it and either make an offer or not make an offer. And in the long run, we made an offer on around 300 barrels, most of which were accepted. We probably have about 30 barrels that owners asked us to move but didn't want to sell, so we've got those as well that are just sitting there maturing for a later date to see what they want to do with them. But yeah, we ended up with about 300 casks, and they were a mixture of bourbon, sherry and port, a mixture of 200 and 100-litre casks. And we took them to Belgrove, to the bond store there, and then we assessed them all. And of the 300 odd, there were only 2, to my knowledge, that weren't pretty good whiskey, and that we didn't want to make an offer on. So we did anyway. So that's how we ended up with the spirit that we've got. At the time of the Scoundrel, and I would say it's pretty amazing that anyone's tasting the Scoundrel now, because it sold out very quickly, as most people would know. They're about 3,500 bottles, mostly in 500 ml format, and they sold out very quickly, and it was very, very well received. Um, when I was asked to try and find some for this, I knew that we'd put the initial 2 dozen away, and I went looking for them. When I found them, I found another cache of 700 ml bottles, which was pretty amazing. Only a small half a dozen of them, but that's what you're drinking tonight. And at the time that we put this together, it was 13 casks went into the Scoundrel. And at that time, we probably didn't own more than about 17 casks. It was so early in the process of transferring this whiskey. And but when we put it together, and it was put together by Pete Bignell and Nathan Reeves, who you'll meet a bit later in the show. And it was a bit of a miracle, really. It turned into this massive sort of Christmas pudding of a thing that everyone was immediately drawn to, and it sort of set the tone, and it always has set the tone for what we wanted, what we've done since then, and what we wanted to do in the first place. So this, I'll be really interested to see how people respond to the Scoundrel. I haven't drunk much of it in the last 3 years because there hasn't been much of it to drink, and there's been a few other things to drink. But it's obviously, as the firstborn, it holds a very special place for us, but also the fact that it was so well received, and so well received by the industry. The people in the industry would come up to me and say, that is just fantastic, and it's as good as Tassie whiskey gets, and so forth. And so it was very heartening to know that what we were doing was getting a very positive response. On the days when we blended this, so it was 13 casks, and we put it into probably 1,000 litre vat. I can't remember, stainless, and it was blended up. And I remember the first time we took the lid off the stainless, everyone in the distillery, and there were probably 6 or 8 people there that day, they all ran over like rats and stuck their head in it. It was this smell of everything that reminded you of Christmas pudding or Christmas cake, or however you want to say it. It had that beautiful, rich, sweet, cinnamon sort of aroma that came off it. Everything that, and that's the way it drank as well. So I won't rabbit on for too much longer, but that was the Scoundrel. And obviously the Scoundrel was the first piece of marketing we did. So we asked our artist, who was a Tassie girl living in London, to draw us up. We thought we're going to go with endangered Tassie animals that also reflected a little bit of sort of convict history on the back of the Nance story. And the first one was obviously the Tassie Devil. And they said to me, "Oh, how do you want it to look?" And I said, "Oh, I want it to look like it's just been thrown out of a West Coast pub." And so that's the image that's on the front of the Scoundrel. And he's much loved. And the good news is that when I get back to Tassie, one of my first jobs is to reprise the Scoundrel. So Scoundrel Mark II will be out before the end of the year, and we have the capacity, and we have the product to be able to very closely imitate Scoundrel 1. And I think that's important. We won't release it unless we think it's a very close proximate to what you're drinking tonight. So enjoy that, because it might be the last time you drink that one, but won't be the last time you drink a Scoundrel, I hope.
Yeah, that's amazing. If you guys haven't seen the little Tassie Devil, this is my bottle of the Lockdown, which is him after he's been kicked out of the pub into the into the jail cell. So yeah, just beautiful, beautiful artwork on those. But yeah, Rob says it's got an Aussie Speyside type quality to it. Andrew never saw the 700ml variants but loved the release. Michael says it's beautifully fragrant and fruity. Yeah, I got like so much golden syrup and treacle on it when sipping it. It is that sweetness. And so you got a mixture of port sherry and bourbon casks from Net.
Yeah.
investors slash victims. Um, but yeah, so do you know when they were operating, they just predominantly used those cask types? They didn't vat between the two cask types much, did they? And you guys are vatting between the cask types?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, without being too critical of them, one of the things, they almost made really good whiskey despite themselves. There are a lot of faults in a lot of the individual barrels.
Yeah.
So later on tonight, we'll talk about some of the whiskies you're drinking. We don't tend to make a lot of hoo-ha about single cask or dual cask, but if somebody asks us, we'll tell them. So what we prefer to do is, and we have released a single cask for you guys that we didn't tell anybody was a single cask. It's just a sort of like a bit of a backhanded joke for us, really, because you could go out and say it's $2,000 a bottle or whatever, and there's only 200 bottles or whatever it might be. But we prefer not to do that because only one, I would say, in 25 to 30 of the casks is capable of coming out. I don't know how many of the people here tonight know much about this sort of vatting process, but the chances of finding a single cask are very rare. So I know the times when we open up a cask and we all taste it, we all almost invariably, if it can be a single cask, we all recognise that almost straight away because it's so rare. So a lot of the base material that's gone into some of these is really nice whiskey, but couldn't possibly stand up on its own. And almost invariably, the larger, so 13 casks into the Scoundrel, and later on, we're not drinking the Golden Fleece tonight, but the Golden Fleece was 20 casks. So, it's and almost invariably, the comment is it gets to a point where it's better than any of the single casks that we put in there, which is, that doesn't sound too special, but the truth of it is that some really good casks go in to these blends, but the outcome, the sum of the parts always ends up being better than the best of the individual casks. And that's the mystery of it all. So the mystery to me is how can somebody put 30 litres of, say, a bourbon cask into 300 litres of a Perra cask, and that suddenly flicks the switch. But it does. And that's the absolute joy of the times when we get to put these things together. I got the privilege of designing them, so describing what the taste profile. I mean, you guys will often say to me, I want something like this, I want a big cherry red, a Perra, blah, blah, maybe around this ABV. But then I get to go and architect that and say to people, this is what we're actually shooting for. And until we get it, we don't stop. And we have, that's the most fun part of the whole equation, is seeking through those barrels that we know a fair bit about now, because we've been tasting them over and over for the last 4 to 5 years, and identifying which barrel will trigger the effect that we're looking for. And it's not always the same effect. The base principles are the same, but the taste profile, and as you know, I mean, the taste profile, if it's predominantly bourbon cask, it's going to go one way, and if it's predominantly porter sherry, it's going to go another way. So, but the joy is to be able to go and have that range of material that is just waiting to be sort of put together with its mates to produce one of these things.
Yeah, I love it. It's like baking a cake. It's like sugar's great. Butter is amazing. Like sugar, butter, some eggs, and some flour. Cake is the best. But yeah, no, that's absolutely phenomenal. We might move on to whiskey number 2, the Fly By Night. So this one, I believe, is a tawny frogmouth on the label. I think I've got a photo.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's what I'm drinking tonight. I've only bought 2 little bottles up with me. One's a golden. Oh, that's not true. I've got 3, but the Fly By Night all time, and I just never ceases to surprise me when I do put it in a glass how good it is. And so that's what I'm drinking tonight, and it's up this end. It's cracking. In Queensland, it's really good.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably pretty tasty wherever you are around Australia. But yeah, so the tawny frogmouth, um, which are they more common in Tasmania? Because I don't think I've seen one in Victoria.
Well, I've seen them both in Tassie and up here in Queensland. So they're resident all the way up the east coast, but you don't often see them. They're called fly by night for a reason, and they don't make any sound. So yeah, they're pretty hard. They're a pretty hard find.
I grew up in the Blue Mountains, and yeah, every morning, they'd actually bring you gifts sometimes. So you wouldn't hear it, but there was like a dead mouse like on your windowsill, and they're sitting there looking at you, going, "Do something with it," and you're like, "I don't eat mice, but thank you for the gift."
The cats of the owl world.
Yeah, they're a
Rob,
beautiful thing. So just to fill in a few details on this one. So this is it fills out the story a little bit as well, because obviously when the Scoundrel came out, it was the only thing we had. And then we built on that to decide what we were going to do for commercial releases. And our thought pattern was we want to explore where people want to go with this. So we're going to do something which is predominantly a bourbon cask influence, and we're going to do something else which is predominantly a para cask influence. So this has got a black wax top on it, which means it's, in our world, that means it's predominantly a bourbon cask influence. And this is the only one I'll make any comments on because it's the only one I'm drinking. But forever for me, it represents exactly that. So it's a vanilla, coffee mocha, chocolate sort of style, underpinned by the principles that whatever we do has to be full flavored, very full flavored. Point number one. Point number two, it has, you're not allowed to use the word smooth, but it has to have no heat. Okay, so I don't care what, we won't release, and this will be an interesting thought later on in the night, because it took us a long time to release anything at anywhere near cask strength, because we were very concerned that we wanted all our whiskey to be very, very drinkable. So we wanted a non-whiskey drinker or a first-time whiskey drinker, and people have said this to me 1,000 times. I don't drink whiskey, but I could drink that. And that's really what we're shooting for. And so this one, which is an ongoing product, so we'll always, for as long as we've got product, and as long as and if and when we can reproduce it ourselves, we'll always have this fly-by-night bourbon cask based vanilla coffee mocha style. So you'll always, if you walk into a bar or a bottle shop and you see a Remnant with a black cap, you'll go, I know I like that. You don't have to know, what release it is or what iteration it is, but if that's your taste profile, if you like that vanilla and you like that sweetness, then there'll always be one of those there for you. If it's got a black cap on it, you go for that. And we're not drinking any of the second one, which was the Heard Not Seen, but that's the sibling to the Fly By Night in the Apera style. So if you like it fruit driven, if you like it fruit sweet, then you can go, if it's a red cap in the bottle shop or the bar, if that's your taste profile, your taste preference, you can go to that. And again, we'd hope that for as long as we're still doing this, there'll always be those two somewhere on a shelf for you to choose. So, this is our real workhorse. It's been fantastically popular. We've sold thousands of bottles of this in bars and bottle shops and to our subscribers and so forth, and they keep coming back. So I love it.
Amazing. I think so. I've got a couple of questions. Howard asked if any of the cask info from Net was accurate, and yeah, as Ollie answered, was some of the casks, yes, the information in Net's logs books on what they were when they arrived was.
Okay, I'd say the only thing I'd say that we had two strengths. We had cask strength, and we have what we call bat cask strength. At least 50%, probably closer to 60 or more percent of the cask that we got were in the 43 to 48% range, which meant that they'd been doctored. Okay, so at some point they'd been, one cask had become two. and they'd been watered down. Now, what I'm assuming that they didn't know at the time, and certainly they probably couldn't have known, was it didn't affect the quality of the whiskey. So in terms of the records, well, we knew what we were getting because we could test the ABV. But what we didn't know was what effect that would have had on the quality. And in truth, the science experiment says it didn't affect the quality at all.
Yeah.
There's some very, very, very good whiskies there at 46 in the casks. That's fine by us because we're not obsessed at all by ABV, and we're not concerned at all. And again, as you'll taste later tonight, there's some exceptional casks in the mid 60s to high 60s range as well. And so we can use both. And we never set out, except I'll correct myself. The only time we set out to hit an ABV is with the Golden Fleece. So the Golden Fleece will always be at 45. And that's a challenge for us because we have enough material to be able to play around enough to make that part of our challenge and know that we can achieve that. A really, really drinkable $99 10-year-old plus single malt, and it's going to be at 45 just so that we don't have to print more labels.
The cost saving on the label is
yeah,
the headache
that's
worth
30
it.
that 30 cents makes all the difference.
It does. I love it. Yeah, Greg says it's great. He's had a few. Yeah, it's interesting as well, like especially when you've got water added to cask, people are like, oh, it changes it. But then other distilleries will say, yeah, no, we add water to the spirit because we want the water to age as well as the alcohol to age. So some distilleries purposefully water down what goes into the cask beyond regular and stuff. But
we didn't have the luxury of making that choice.
Yeah, exactly.
They were made for us. But also our leap of faith was to buy them without knowing, and so we got our karma payback, out of the quality that we did get. It was that was our happy accident.
What wasn't there a third style of cask where there was just nothing filled? Was it a piece of promise?
Yeah, we didn't buy any of those. Well, mind you, I would say this too, that we had to pay outrageous amounts for the timber itself. So one of the gotchas was that part of that scheme had that those barrels had been leased back. And so we paid outrageous amounts of money for the oak. Yeah. So they won't be being made into garden tubs anytime soon. So.
Get every cent out of them. Yeah. That's cool. Brenda was asking about the age ranges of the casks when you acquired them. Was a bit ambiguous, or
Yeah, look, yes and no. The you couldn't trust anything. There were Julian dates on nearly all of the barrels, which gave us a hint, and look, we knew enough of the people and we knew enough of the history. It's only a small place, we're only 60 k's from the Nant distillery itself, and everybody, you know how small the industry is down there. So we knew everyone who'd worked there, and we knew the good ones and the bad ones, and most people had some touch on this over the time. So we knew, there's no massive surprises. And look, the course of time says we know now that we've owned them for 4 years, and we know how much earlier than that, when the audit was done, Tim Duckett did an audit, and we know all about that. And so we've never spruiked, we've never pushed the age on them, but we know now that all our material is over 10 years old now. So who cares? And age, and as you'll all find out in a few years' time, it's just a number. It's been revealed to me. So, and different. The truth of it is that the casks. I could show you some photos, and it's a pity I didn't send them up to you. I've pulled samples out of 15 casks. Some of them are almost clear, and some of them are almost black. So and they're all been in the cask for the same amount of time. So the cask does the work. Not yes, time does the work, but if it's not in the right cask, you won't. Age is irrelevant in a bad cask. So.
Yeah, I think Greg, who's on there, was at a tasting with us last night. We had a 29-year-old Tomatin in a refill sherry, and it was so soft, clear, grassy colored, and it was just like, this isn't sherry. This isn't like not even refill. It's every cask can really impart a different color and flavor and whatnot.
Well, we're doing some stout cask now, and I'd show you whiskey that you would swear was 5-6 years old, and it's 6 months old. So don't well, the only time you know that it's new make is that when you drink it. You couldn't possibly know if you just looked at it.
Yeah.
So
cool.
that's part of the mystery of it all, the magic.
Yeah, phenomenal. Well, we might move on to whiskey number 3, and I'll go back to a question that that Michael had as well, actually. Sorry. When you are vatting the cask together, is it portions of casks, or are you putting full casks when you finally figure out the recipe that works?
Yeah, it's all of the above. Yeah, it's all of the above. So more often than so we do it in kilograms. Basically, so I would say we're going to see a little video later of Nathan. Nathan's the magician. Okay, so he doesn't work for, well, no one works for us, but he certainly doesn't work for us. He's got his own operation at Overland, but he's absolute welded on acolyte of ours and has been with us from the start. And he's got the best palate I've ever seen. And he also has the best, has that ability to be able to, within percentage points, add something to something and turn it into something else. He's just a genius. And so more often than not, he'll pick 3, maybe 4 base casks, which would be full casks, and we'll make a base material, and then he'll work with that. But often it's as little as 10 kilos or 20 kilos from a particular cask that we'll add. And some of the super, super premium casks we've got, they get, it's like a spoonful of sugar. So they get very, very little, and they do a whole lot of work, do a lot of heavy lifting. And as I said before, I think the strange thing about that is that often it doesn't happen until right at the end. So you might have an 80% result for a long, long, long time, and then suddenly literally one stainless steel bucket will turn the whole thing on its head, and that'll just be stopped. Like everyone will just go, stop, that's it. If we touch it again, we'll ruin it. And your cake analogy, like you don't over-egg it, don't over-egg the pudding. And but yeah, more often than not, it's a number of large bits and then a few small bits that are added towards the end.
Yeah, cool. I think I've got some photos of the recipe situation. I don't know if you can see it there. So yeah, black spot blend number 2.
Yeah,
this many kilos of that barrel, this many kilos of that barrel.
That's it. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a very high tech process.
See, now I'll just stop you there too, because if you see this S126 there, 68 kilos of that, and that's that yellow color on the right that you can see. And that one I carried across the distillery, and it was a 200 litre cask. And so we added that to Black Spot 2. But at the time, we realised that it was so good. And so that actually ended up being Black Spot X. That was the first single cask we ever did, was what was left of that. After that 68.5 came out, we used the rest of it to do our first, after Black Spot 1, Black Spot 2, we did it Black Spot X. And it was the most amazing caramel, I don't know, toffee apple type sherry cask that you'd ever wish to taste. It was magnificent. Sadly sold out. Might be a few under my bed, I hope, but that was the same thing. Like the reason we did that was because as I carried it across the distillery, the smell was coming out of it, and I said to the boys, "Oh, what are we going to do with this?" And they said, "Oh no, we'll bottle the rest of that," which we did.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I love that you can tell that that Phil got these photos for us directly from the reflection in the
Yeah, I
liquid.
like
I love
that.
it.
That's
Yeah, no, no, that's amazing. I will say, uh, under your bed sounds like the most exciting place in Tasmania.
not much room.
Yeah. Rob's asking, you work in kilos and not liters? Because obviously, I suppose there's a sugar density difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had no understanding of that when I started, but yes, so kilos kilos of our workload, yeah, always.
Yeah.
Because of the blending. The blending, yeah, that it dictates the outcome.
Yeah, if you
Live,
ever
live.
want to learn the lesson that kilos and liters are not the same, bake pastries because it's like, no, you want exactly this many kilos of this and not this many liters because it will mess up anything.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, and as I said, I only did it because that's what I was told. Well, and in a lot of ways, it's easier to work with anyway because we got weighing machines. So,
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. So tell us about the Elusive series, because that's kind of a relatively, I suppose, recent series of batches.
yeah, well, that was just because you guys demanded it, and I'm cool with that. But it was, we're all for the small releases. As long, look, again, in principle, we don't want to overcharge for this material. There are people out there charging 3 and 4 times for exactly the same material. I might add, there are people out there who have access to some of these casks at the same time or before us, and they made a big hoo-ha about the value attaching value to the rarity of it, which I find offensive. So we're all for doing special little things, but you shouldn't have to pay. I mean, yes, you should pay a premium because these whiskies, obviously with the high ABVs, we're paying a lot more tax on them, anyway, it's a complex issue, but it's nice to showcase small batch. So, and these ones, again, without saying too much about them, or we didn't say too much about them, they tend to be single cask, dual cask, maybe 3 casks at most. And it's just saying, let's put these things together to a requested recipe. So you said if you want double chocolate, then we'll go out and see if we can make a double chocolate. And that's what basically we did with the Elusives, exclusively as a sort of thank you to you guys because you were so supportive of us from the start. And we're also big on that. We do our own marketing in Tassie, obviously, and you handle the rest of Australia for us. But we don't want to be all things to all people. We're never going to be everywhere. We just want to be consistent and supportive of the group that support us. And we have very supportive retailers in Tasmania who are welded on, and we look after them. So we've done small releases for people like Drink Tasmania, where they've done nothing but give us their wholehearted support from the start. And it's a sort of thank you, so they've done a couple of single casts. And the Elusives and the Drop Bears are sort of our thank you to you guys and to your cohort, your supporters, saying, well, you know where to go. If you're in the know, you know where to go to get the really good stuff. And this is if we do a limited release, it's a one-off, and you either get it or you don't get it. That's down to you, but it'll be good value and it'll still follow all those flavor profiles and the quality profiles that we demand. So that's the Elusive, and it's one of the very first times. So we're very, as I said, very reluctant to do 50 and 60% ABVs because we were frightened that we would lose that drinkability. I'm not a cask strength drinker myself at all, but when we found we could do them without causing pain, and we did. I'm pleased we did because some people just love that high ABV, and why shouldn't they be able to drink it?
Yeah, I'm personally love whiskey of all ABV ranges. You know, it's like bodies of all sizes. But yeah, no, I find that there's such viscosity and staying power, particularly on the palate sometimes when you get a whiskey like this. But yeah, and Michael says it's easier to dial down 100%, you know, for certain people who, you know, might want to pare it back, they can. It gives them that option. But
Okay.
this is phenomenal. I think this is the first time I've tried the batch 3 Elusive. I remember trying the batch 1 and loving it. I think that one had a little bit more ginger on it. This one's all caramel meringue pie. I love it. Rob says it's got some linger on it. Brendan, that's a nice one. Top tier. And actually, yeah, good point, Rob. What was the casking on the Elusive? What did you kind of aim for with this one?
It's dual cask, Apera.
Gotcha.
It was what we were asked for. We were asked for, strangely enough, he was more concerned about colour. And we actually had this thing. It was very funny. We had 2 casks. And when we put them together, it went sort of cherry red. And I just loved it. I'm not sure whether this is the one. I sent you a photo and I called it Montezuma.
Oh yes,
Yes,
I was
we
like,
called it
oh, what is
when
that?
yeah, when I pulled it out, when we put it together and I pulled it out and held it up into the sun, the boy said, what are we going to call it? I said, we're going to call it the blood of Montezuma. Right. And that's what this turned out to be, because happily we had this one cask which was an intense red color, and it gave it that. Well, it was also a perfect match taste wise, and it was the most amazing. It was the most amazing thing in the stainless in terms of the sort of sunset red that it produced.
Yeah, let me see if I can bring it up here.
Yeah,
You to see, yeah.
yeah, it's stunning, and that's what it was like. I mean, that's the very end of the vat, obviously, but it was just amazing.
Yeah. It's like I think there's something so visually delicious
Yeah.
about those colors sometimes, you know, it's as much as, you know, I love a bourbon cask, you know, I love that flavor profile. Sometimes you get those sherry casks and you just look at them, you're like, that looks like liquid heaven to my eyes. So,
And more often than not, I mean, I've never seen one that looked like that tasted bad.
yeah.
When you see them, we did a black spot M. I don't know if you ever saw that. That was unbelievable. That was like a red stop sign, and it tasted like that. It was fantastic. But
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah. Howard's getting nectarines and peaches on this one, which I love as well. A black spot M or black spot?
Oh, black spot M. So the black spot 1, black spot 2.
Yeah, there's a T as well, I think.
A T, yeah, T, which is the green top bourbon cask. That's an absolute belt. I mean, they're all good. I mean, if you see anything that's got any other color other than red or black, then it's going to be a black spot or one of your special releases. So blue caps, green, yellow. Again, if you walk into a bottle shop and see a blue cap, just buy it, because that'll be black spot X, and
Rare as hen's teeth now.
you'd never regret buying it.
Yeah, amazing. Well, yeah, we might move on to the sister, I suppose, releases of the tasting. So I've got a black top and a red flax top for these ones. But yeah, we might move on to whiskey number 4, the virus. So unsurprisingly, virus and vaccine were pandemic bottlings. Again, you know, working with Phil and Peter and the team to create some whiskey to get us through while we were all stuck at home.
I think the funniest thing about these two was, it's a while ago now, but I remember saying to Chris, he came back and he said, this is what he wanted and so forth. And I sent him the note back and I said, the virus has been contained and the vaccine is in the bottle. I said, no surprise, there's more virus than vaccine. So I think there are 18 more bottles of of the virus than there were of the vaccine. But I thought at the time it was pretty appropriate, even though we're black humour because we were in the middle of not knowing whether any of us were going to survive. But it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
We ran a online naming competition for them, so Garth War Boys ended up winning that one. Plus we did the lockdown, which Emma held up the bottle, which was kind of a third one to follow up on those two. And then we did Suns Out, Guns Out. So the Tassie Devil came out onto the beach with his glasses on and then the beach white flags, surf life-saving flags in the background. So it was finally a bit of a celebration end of what was 3 years to some people, especially those in Melbourne, the most locked down city in the world.
Yeah, I think I also have my Suns Out, Guns Out bottle, but the only one I've cracked into so far is the lockdown to celebrate.
Yeah, I'm gonna call myself out here anyway. I was pretty much responsible for the Suns Out, Guns Out, and against all odds, it was probably the least of those whiskies. So, strangely enough, the pandemic brought the best out of me, but the coming out into the sun, I think I missed the mark with that one. It's probably my least favourite of everything we've released, to be honest. So.
Hey, we all had a slow return to normality.
That's
all it was.
Yeah, it was bland. I don't think that shouldn't have been bland. The coming out should have been a bit more special. It's easy drinking, but there's not a real lot else going on there.
Honestly, I love it because it just tastes like pineapple lumps to me. And it's just like it's tropical and it reminds me of being on a tropical beach. So I'm like, yep, that's exactly where I want to be after all of that.
Oh no, that's fair enough. I shouldn't denigrate it. It's just that I know. Well, you got to rate them all, don't you? In the end, you got to have a least favorite.
Yeah, as you say, it's like tell me who's your favorite child without telling me who's your favorite child. Yeah, no, amazing. Need to have some of my Lindt chocolate with the virus. I love it. Yeah, I reckon the virus pairs really, really well with chocolate. It feels weird calling it the virus, but yeah, no, it is very like chocolatey. When I first sipped it, it reminded me of like some of those old school, like, yeah, chocolatey praline pudding kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, super, super cool.
It was funny too, because with the artwork, I was massively attached to the Tassie Devil, and it took a lot of convincing to mess around with it. But you guys did a great job with both of those. When I finally let go, I got a real laugh out of it. I thought it was great, and everybody else did too, I think.
So these were single casks as well, you said?
No. Look, I'd have to. No, they're not single cask. I can go back because I'm sitting at my computer. I'll have a quick look, and I'll come back to you. But I have a list of everything that goes into everything.
Unlike certain companies that provided some of this whiskey.
Yeah, well, my task was a bit easier. I didn't have that much. So, okay, so here's the deal with them. There were 2 casks, and there was a total of 159, in this case, litres, which was whatever it became in kilos. One of the casks was they were both sherry cask, and one was at 65.7 and the other one was at 45. And so the virus and the vaccine were different proportions of those 2 casks. So that's interesting. And I could go back and actually weed out the tasting notes on each of those casks, but it's late at night.
But yeah, so everyone in the Zoom to pop their own tasting notes.
Yeah, so they were both. There was 104, basically 104 litres of one and 55 litres of the other, and so they were different blends of the same 2 casks, and they were both rated quite highly on our initial assessments. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So Ollie's has put a definitely this is one where tasting them side by side is highly recommended.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting, isn't it, that they're
Yeah.
basically they're the same material, they're just in different proportions.
Yeah. So tell us which you personally prefer as well, the virus or the vaccine. I know Rob's already much more in favor of the vaccine, sorry, over the virus. This isn't thankfully not a political stance. This is not a UK government policy.
The other thing that's going to be interesting, and we're not there tonight, but the lockdown was in fact, and I don't know if anybody knew this, but the lockdown was in fact a single cast. So,
and it was the only one I opened. God damn.
So I don't think we told anybody that at the time, but yeah, that was a single cast.
Yeah, amazing. Ooh, Brendan is a fan of the virus. I personally prefer the virus as well, but Greg loves the vaccine. Yeah, I feel like the vaccine is maltier, and I mean there's a distinctive ABV difference between the two as well. Obviously, the vaccine's a little bit stronger than the virus. Is that intentional or not intentional?
We just went for different flavor profile. So we never, as I said, apart from the Golden Fleece, we don't set out with an ABV in mind. So we ask them to make something to a certain taste profile, and when they get there, it's whatever ABV it is. So no, it wasn't intentional in that sense. Somebody asked, Michael S said, should I sell it then? I wonder, was he talking about Suns Out, Guns Out? Because I would say this, everything I say about whiskey is my personal taste. I have no expertise whatsoever. So you should rely on either your own assessment or someone who's got a lot more knowledge than me.
I have no knowledge about whiskey, he says. Meanwhile, he crafts delicious whiskey.
I know how to put it together, but I don't really, I can't. Well, it's one of those classic ones. I know what I like, but that doesn't mean it's better or worse or whatever. It's just I set my own, yeah. And I've got the privilege of being able to taste them all anytime I like. So
it's a hard life. Yeah, honestly, I will say that the people, the distillers, the brands that I know where they're like, I just make whiskey that I like to drink and then I bottle it and people like it as well. Honestly, they make some of my favorite whiskeys.
Nathan said we did a podcast a fair while ago. I don't know, we're doing one of our releases and Peter and Nathan were being interviewed and they talked to Nathan and he said, look, we could have put all of these casks together and made a really, really nice whiskey, but where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
And so what we've done is go the other way and do designer whiskey with what we've got. And so this is the fun bit. I mean, the fun bit is the fact that, I could go through the list now, I'll have a quick look, but, as I run down my spreadsheet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, we're getting up to like 25 releases in 4 years, some big, most small, but all value for money, different, interesting. You couldn't drink the fly by night and say, oh, that's the same as one of the others. It's just not. But the fly by night will always be the fly by night, and that's the great fun about it. That next year there'll be something else that comes out, and it'll really, it'll knock something out of the park, or change, just change people's minds about, some of the whiskies that we've got. And as they all get older, when we first bought this, I wasn't involved in whiskey at all, and my wife said, well, what are you doing now? And I said, well, they're not cabbages, they're not going to rot. These whiskies just get better and better, which they are.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob's wondering if you have all 25 releases under your bed.
Sadly, no. No, I can occasionally come across, I surprise myself occasionally because as you get older and lose track of things, sometimes that's a bonus. You know, like there could be a 6-pack of something sitting somewhere I've completely forgotten about.
Yeah, it's like
I would say, in truth, I've probably got 12 or 15. I didn't keep any of yours because we shipped them all to you, which was a mistake, obviously. But so I don't have any of the viruses or the vaccines. I think I might have a lockdown somewhere, and I do have like some of the experimental, some of the elusives and some of the drop bears, but I've written on them on their base in black texture or something, and I wouldn't actually know what they are. So I'd have to go back and chase them out. But I'd say happily I've got a dozen, some of which like children to me that I'll never open and never sell. So
yeah, I mean, it's the next level of putting $50 in your pocket, forgetting about it, and finding it again later down the line. It's perhaps a more fun venture. But no, that's really cool. I assume everyone's been trying the vaccine and the virus. I think by like one vote, the vaccine won. But yeah, I'm still a massive fan.
Someone's saying what happens when stock runs out. So okay,
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, okay. So I sent Emma a little notes on Remnant that sort of describes what we've tried to do and what we're intending to do in the future. So our intention is to stay very niche and very, very boutique. But as we move on, we are going to produce, and we've started to produce some whiskey with these casks. The casks that are good enough to be reused, we're going to reuse them, and we've started that. Our first iteration is a stout cask where we've done 20 casks, and the principle will remain the same. So we're hoping that because of the people who are involved, that they can make whiskey to the same sort of profiles that we've got now. And we're finding that quite a number of these barrels are going to get a number of more uses out of them, which is great. And so we would expect that we'd be producing comparative whiskey into the future in the same sort of amounts that we are now. So we're not ever going to pump up or look for a trade sale or whatever. We're just going to keep rolling the way we're rolling, and then we'll let people be the judge. I mean, the principles are that unless it's of the quality that we require, unless it's of the taste profile that we require, and unless it's of the value for money that we require, then we won't release it, and that'll apply to our new make as much as it will. So we've still got hundreds of casks of the old stuff. Now, surprisingly, we haven't used as much as we might have thought we would. And so as that a lot of that will be around to help along some of the stuff we're doing now as well. And so, yeah, I'd expect that Remnant will be around for quite a long time to come.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Nice. Well, we might move on to the final whiskey, and we might only, if you want to share the little introductory video from Nathan, who helps you guys out on a semi-regular basis.
No, he's a constant. Nathan's a constant. It's like a god. It's like the mafia. He's in the team.
I love it.
I'll just hit play.
Hello, I'm Nathan Reeves. I help the guys from Remnant with some tasting and blending. I've got a new release for you, aged in a pair of casks. Lovely notes of citrus, forest berries, pecan pie, really nutty and creamy. It's a lovely, complex whiskey that's dangerously drinkable at a slightly higher ABV than we normally do. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
I like that he says slightly higher ABV, as if it's not one of the most bombastic ABVs I've seen out of Tasmania.
Phil, which distillery was Nathan at just there?
Nathan's with Overland. He's one of the partners at Overland. But Nathan's background is he's been decades in the wine industry, and he still is. He's very well connected around the world. He gets flown back to California for 10 weeks a year to do vintage over there for some of the main Napa wineries, but his passion's whiskey, and he is a savant. I've never known anyone who was as consistent, and he's laser-like in his ability to put tastes together. He's unbelievable. And aside from that, he's a really nice guy. So he's got such a great passion for what we're doing, and he sort of drives one element of it. I mean, he's the magician or the guru at that end of it. And we wouldn't produce half decent whiskey without him. He's a legend. And he's a very generous character with it,
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
With these drop bears, obviously we've worked closely over the years. We've had Remnant at the whiskey shows. We love promoting and working with you guys. Something that I've always loved, yourself and Peter Bignell, you have a promise of consistency, and quality is always there, but more importantly, and the playfulness of experimentation. So when we come to you with an idea, you never say no. You just go, let me think on it. And then you come back and go, we can actually do this, but let's make it better. Or you rise to the occasion, or you challenge us to actually come back with a better brief or something. So it's this collaborative but experimental approach. And we've always loved that from the beginning. So when Chris pitched to you, can we do an exclusive bottling for the Oak Barrel Fair last year, 2023? It needs to be big, bold, and scarier, or something like that was the original brief. And I'll share what the original label was. We had no sort of intentions for this to become a regular thing. It was kind of like a one-time only. But yeah, it was 67.2%, 12-year-old sherry cask, single sherry cask from memory, bottled, exclusively for the Oak Barrel Fair. And people went absolutely crazy for it. It sold out, and to the point we've always sort of said we'd love to do this again. So when I think the opportunity, you guys found something that ticked those boxes, this is why that the drop bears come back out of it's a whiskey that doesn't appear that often, but when you find it, you know.
Yeah, and you have to tell American tourists about it to scare them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not going to say it's certainly one of the drop bears single cask, and I'll tell you which one, but let me look at it. Drop bear one was single cask. So there was nearly 76 litres at that 67%. So it was one of our better casks. And we're very reluctant to do that, obviously, because they're so important to us across the rest of the profiles. So you got something like this, 30 litres of it, 30 kilos of it can be very important to us. So to let 70 or 100 litres of it go all at once, there's got to be a reason for it. So as I said, more or less it's just to support the fact that you've been very good to us over the time. And, if we can't let one go, then it's being a bit sort of dog in a manger. And which, if we can say yes, we will say yes more often than not. So not to everybody.
So tell us about drop bear number 2. What's gone into it, and the ABV still quite high up there.
Yeah, so the drop bear 2 was 2 sherry casks, and they were both in the mid 60s. Strangely enough, the only thing I don't have in front of me is the amount, but they were both, so it was all of one and all of the other. So dual sherry cask in the mid 60s.
Oh.
And when you say sherry, is that a para or is it actual sherry?
Look.
This is where it gets a bit.
Yeah, this is where it gets dodgy. I mean, I took a photo when I had this discussion with Chris. I said, look, we're getting past the point here, where you're just going to have to take it at face value. It had an S on it. I said, I'm going to go sherry. Like, there's no other way. Like, we know the shapes of the barrels. We know a bit about the heritage of the barrels. But after that, no, there's no way of knowing. No, you'd have to be a scientist. We haven't got time. And look, to us, it doesn't matter. I mean, it
Yeah.
always makes me laugh because, yeah, okay, we could pull this out, pull that out. But sometimes, you could take this and say, oh, there's a double sherry cask and I threw 30 kilos of bourbon into it and no one knows, you could do that and actually improve it. So the purity of saying, I had these 2 sherry casks is one thing, which is good. I mean, and he wanted a sherry cask iteration. So we did the best we could. And we resisted putting anything else in it to spice it up a bit.
Well, I think you've done phenomenally with this one. It's incredible. It's like dark chocolate coated raspberry jubes and like a bit of tobacco leaf to mix it off. But yeah, everyone is loving it. Mark loves it. Howard says it's great. Rob's impressed by the mouthfeel. Brendan's gonna do his best to not drink all of it to save it for a special occasion or something. But Jimmy Drop Bear is nom nom.
Yeah.
Highly like that. S for sweet, phenomenally. But yeah, no, it's so juicy and absolutely right. It does not drink like a 64.7%. Like if you gave that to me blind, I'd say, oh, it's getting up there in the 50s, maybe. But yeah, absolutely spectacular.
Well, that's the one thing I just said before. We'll never put something out that we didn't consider drinkable, ever. Yeah. Okay, so someone said to me, and we just don't do it because it harms the brand. I mean, it harms the whole principle of what remnant means. Yeah. So remnant means drinkable, full flavored, good value. Now, sometimes good value might be $300 a bottle, or it might be $100 a bottle. That's sort of not really relevant, but the other two are very relevant, right? So I don't want anybody to look up and look at a remnant bottle and go, I wonder whether I would find that drinkable. That can't be the case. So, it's nice to know people are drinking this, which is probably way out of my wheelhouse, and enjoying it, because that's the difference of everyone's palate. Some people are built for this and some aren't.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, it's Michael says it's always drinkable. Michael, is it in my glass? I'll drink it. Yeah, absolutely spectacular. And I think Andrew cracked another slice of the Lindt chocolate to have with this, which fully amazing. Greg's glad he got one. His taste buds are banging. Now you're making me jealous. I couldn't get my hands on one, and it's super lucrative if I couldn't get my hands on one, apart from maybe siphoning something off from Phil. But there was one question a little bit back here. That's right, that Rob asked, because you briefly touched on the stout cask that you've got.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people are familiar, but Peter's son has a brewery down in Tassie. So Rob's wondering about the letting the barrels out for stout production and then reusing them for whiskey, and if that's going to be more common in the future for you guys.
Well, it's quite a funny story. I'm sort of charged with trying to keep track of everything. So I went up after we'd done the Scoundrel and maybe a couple other releases, and I was trying to figure out what to do with the used barrels, and I seemed to be about 20 short. So I went looking for them. I found they actually said Tom Bignell, who's not part of our consortium, but one of the brothers, has T-Bone Brewery. And somebody said, oh, Tom might have borrowed a few. So anyway, so I went down to the brewery and I found them full of stout for David Walsh for his Dark Mofo. And so after a bit of slapping on the wrist and shaking of the finger and whatever, the problem with that, it's not a problem necessarily. It's a problem if you don't know, because once the stout comes out, if the yeasts go wild in the barrel, you got big problems. Right? So we had to then time. So we decided, well, it's at a time which was quite coincidental but positive, that stout cask was becoming a bit of a thing worldwide. There were people releasing and whatever. So we decided that that's what we do. So we made 30 litres of spirit to keep those barrels alive whilst we progress to being able to fill them. And we've since filled them. So, and it's fantastic. The spirit that is in there is fantastic. So we saved the day, and it's going to be called. Now let me get this right. The Black Sheep. So there's Golden Fleece, which will be an ongoing $99 whiskey. We've got this belief that, and also as we make, we're going to get excise relief, and so we can bring the price down. Because at the moment, I don't know if people know, but we pay more than $20 per bottle in excise, because we don't get any excise relief for the whiskey that we didn't make, which is the Nance stuff, obviously. So in the future, that means we could take $20 a bottle off whiskey that we sold if we were getting that sort of excise relief. And our belief is that it's good to be known as some of the best whiskey in the world, but it'd be even better to be known as some of the best value whiskey in the world. So A, it's really, really good drinking, but B, it competes on price as well. So the day that we can do that, when we can have a $60 or a $70 remnant whiskey, which is of the quality that people are tasting now, then, you know, the future's assured. And that's really what Black Sheep's all about, and that's what Golden Fleece is all about. We want to bring price expectation down without corrupting the quality or the value proposition. And so, yeah, so the future looks like that, but not just the Black Sheep, but the Black Sheep will be an ongoing. We think that the stout cask's got a real future. And we think that the single malt Golden Fleece, there were 20 casks went into Golden Fleece. It's quite an investment for us to bring that price down. Costs us a lot of money to do it, but we think that's where the future is. So we haven't got a choice really. We could hold back the tide, you know, by keeping price up, but it will wash over us like it washes over everybody else who isn't ready for, well, cost of living crisis, for example. It's true, you know, like you're going to spend $250 on a bottle of good single malt, or you're going to spend $100, you know, like it's, or, you know, or will you revert to an import, which would be, you know, I mean, we're going to have to fight that battle on every front. And somebody else asked a bit further up to what do we produce a year, which is interesting. And we're probably about 5,000 bottles a year at the moment. And that's probably what you'll be able to expect from us going forward. We're never going to be huge. So you're talking about when we do produce, we're going to produce something like 50 casks a year and just keep that incrementally rolling through.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I think Rob's already put in a pre-order for 3 bottles of the stout cask when that finally hits, and I saw Ollie's ears perking up like, ooh, I want some of that. So
I think everyone's going to want some of that. Somebody else asked earlier too about dead casking, and so it's a very interesting question, and it's very pertinent, right? So where we're at the moment is we're building a new bond store. It's taking a lot longer than we'd hoped, you know, councils, et cetera, et cetera. And at that point, that's the point at which we are going to consolidate everything. So we've got a lot of old barrels that are getting too low. And so we need to consolidate a lot of those barrels, a lot of those casks. We need to do a lot of assessment on, and we need to get them in a state where we're not losing as much angel share as we will over the next 2 or 3 summers. And I'm hoping that this spring will be the time where, and at the same time that we do that, if we're going to move all those casks to a new location, is the time to consolidate everything and also to shift, because the stout cask is a fantastic thing, but I have this funny feeling that it's going to mature too fast. That there'll come a point where it's counterproductive, and that might only be 18 months down the track. So it's a sort of ticking time bomb. It's great, a bit like a firework. It's great, you know, while it's going, but you got to know when to put the lid on it. So yeah, that's a constant challenge, is to figure out which of the barrels are the better barrels and which are the ones that are going to match together, and which ones we're going to go forward with and which ones we're not. And luckily we're only talking about 300 casks. We're not talking about 30,000. So,
Yeah.
you know,
It's a slightly more manageable job.
it is manageable, but all the same challenges apply. That you know, there's no point shifting a cask that you're going to have to shift again in 6 weeks' time. So, yeah, but we're getting there.
My favorite thing about the Bond store at the back of Bignell's Bear, it's romantic. Like if you ever get the chance to witness it, compared to so many big traditional Bond stores, which are just aisles of whiskey, and it gets a bit just the same
Clinical.
thing over and over, a bit clinical, and you're like, okay, something one of them out of those 30,000 might be the most impressive whiskey they've ever made, but you walk around the current state of the Bond store and each one has a story to tell, and I think that's part of the magic, the romance that you guys have down there.
Well, I think there's more to it than that too, Ollie, because the truth of the matter is, look, one of the reasons we've been so delayed is that we've been fighting against concrete. So we've been told that we have to have concrete floors in the new Bond store.
True.
And that doesn't work. I mean, so the truth of the matter is that Bond store, as romantic as an old shearing shed might be, it actually probably contributes a massive amount to the way that whiskey's maturing. So it's on earth, and it's on going through a huge range of temperatures and climates, humidity and so forth, different. And the barrels are working in a certain way that they will not work in a factory that's temperature controlled and climate controlled and got a concrete floor. Just won't work. Whatever good or bad there is about that, romance is one thing, but actually from a practical point of view, I got no doubt that those barrels are doing their best work in that natural environment. And, just purely from that point of view, you don't want to be forced to stop doing that. And there's no sane reason to stop doing it. They talk about fire hazard. And I would have thought that whiskey spilling onto a concrete floor would be a lot more dangerous than whiskey spilling into earth. You know what I mean? But try telling that to the inspector, you should have a video too. I don't know if you've got time to do it now, but I actually sent a video of the Bond store up, and which most people wouldn't have seen. I thought, do you have that available?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I sent it up today for you, but might be a stretch to try and get it up there. But it does show the barrels in the store.
I should have one from my last visit. Give me a minute. I'll put it up.
I was about to say, I'm ashamed to say I've never actually been to Belgrove ever, and I tried to go years and years ago with friends of mine, and the timing didn't work out. We couldn't make it for some reason. And I think like every other trip that I've done with work, we're like, oh no, we popped there last year, or we popped there last month or whatnot, and I'm like, but I really want to go. I haven't been. I know it's so exciting for you guys, but and I'm sure some of the guys in the chat have popped in. Michael was just saying he was there in 2019. Andrew says this August sounds good, and let's head on down. Yes, 100%. But yeah, and I think they recently went on the last VIP tour or something and whatnot. But
well, you see, you're really missing out, because if you did manage to front up, you'd be able to choose your own cask. So you'd be able to choose a release of your own.
I know. Well, I'll have to.
If you don't go there, you won't ever get a chance to do that.
I'll have to either make the trip down or bully David into letting me do the driving. I'm a good driver, spare on the next VIP tour. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, there's nothing more. I tell you, there's nothing more entertaining than watching somebody come to the distillery to actually choose their own release. So we've done it a couple of times with people and said, look, I'm going to line you up 3 casks, you pick one. and watching people do that, like it's like having children all over again.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I can see Andrew showing the photo of the casks in the warehouse and whatnot. It makes me even more jealous. Thank you. But well, maybe Ollie will be able to find it and get it up and share it and whatnot. But I think that officially concludes the tasting, and he'll pop and show it a little bit if he has found it. But for now, there is the poll. Tell us your top 2 whiskeys of the night. I don't know if you're a co-host, Phil. If you're a co-host, you can see the results. Do not spoiler them.
No, I won't say a word.
It's like watching the horse racing. It's so much fun. But watching all the numbers change. But yeah, thank you so much, Phil, for joining us. I think Ollie, how's the hunt going?
Just too many videos of whiskey, all kinds of whiskey. So
it's like the reverse of having kids. You just like, just got videos and photos of whiskey galore. But yeah, we might give it a few more minutes. Wait for Ollie to hunt it down. And in the meantime, the poll results are a somewhat unsurprising 91% favorite for the Drop Bear #2 release. I mean, it is spectacular. I will say I love that it's, it's a thank you to the Whiskey List for bottling these, but also Chris is demanding this, demanding that. Just I mean, sometimes he'll come up with this harebrained idea of what he wants, and gosh, you knock it out of the park every time. So yeah, this is absolutely spectacular, and a smattering of love for the others, but really great to see that it's kind of an equal amount of love for everything else. Nothing really got nothing was in the unloved pile, but the Drop Bear unfortunately just blew them all out of the water. Yeah. How are we going, Ollie? How are we doing?
I'm struggling to find it under this pressure, so I will share it another time.
I was thinking what we could do is in the wrap-up email, if you can find it in time for that, in the wrap-up email, we'll attach the video of the Bond store, but also we'll attach Phil's notes as well about the mantra and the goal behind Remnant. I think that would be phenomenal. I think, Ollie, we have
Rob just said, damn shame none of them are available, but you can let him know that fly-by nights are readily available. So
yes,
and,
I think yeah, Rob's got one. Yeah, nice. I think, Ollie, have we got, I assume we most likely have plenty of Golden Fleece up on the website. If you wanted to get another one of those, I think there might be a couple of elusives knocking around if you can find them. Then
yeah, we would.
Not as elusive.
There's always plenty of different remnants on our site, and we'll always put up the new batches when they come available. So there'll be a new Golden Fleece coming up soon as well. So
yeah. No. So thank you everyone for coming along and joining us tonight. Thank you again to Phil for calling in from a much warmer place than here.
yeah, but I go south tomorrow, so
fair enough.
I've got work to do for you people back in Tasmania. So.
God damn it, Chris and his
little Hitler that he is.
But yeah, no, thank you so much for everyone. Phil, if you wanted to hang on for a little bit longer, but we'll say good night to everyone, and we'll try and get those videos out for you in the wrap-up email. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Night, Greg.
Go ahead.
I should have yelled at Greg to bring me salami. So